Welcome to Gold Derby's special The Making of Life Below Zero panel. National Geographic's Emmy-winning reality series follows the everyday struggles of living in the secluded state of Alaska, where one wrong decision could cost you your life. I'm senior editor Denton Davidson here with one of the show's most popular subjects, Sue Aikens, as well as producer Crofton Diack, showrunner and executive producer Joe Litzinger, and editor Tanner Roth. Welcome, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank
Welcome.
you.
Thank
Thanks for
you.
having us.
I want to start just by saying 22 seasons in, you're still going strong. Joe, what is it about this show that continues to captivate audience and amass this loyal fan base that keeps coming back?
It's all Sue, just purely Sue. No, I think Sue is a big draw to that, but I think definitely the cast. We are fortunate that we have an incredible cast that hooked viewers from the very beginning. I think everyone wants to spend more time with them. On top of Alaska being an incredible just visuals, you can just sort of watch hours of Alaska footage alone. You combine those, and then I think over the years, what has kept people is what's become the evolution of our show. We sort of started as a David Finch style horror show in Alaska. What could happen? Bear attacks, weather, and that's all still there. But we've evolved into a character study. And I think over the years, people have got to know, and we've been very fortunate with people like Sue, who let us not only into their lives in Alaska, but into their psyche and sort of getting to know them and follow them. And I think that's been a big part of the success over the years and what brings people back.
How difficult was that initial casting process? Because, first of all, for the series as a whole, and then finding Sue, who was like casting gold out in the middle of the Arctic. What was that process?
We were fortunate that the early days of the show were that NatGeo wanted an Alaska show. There were several Alaska shows on the air at the time. This was 13 years ago, unbelievably. And some of the original executive producers had worked on other Alaska shows, found Sue on a show called Flying Wild Alaska. Casting was early on a range of just people who know people living in Alaska, and then what we used to call tree mail. Not email, but actual tree mail, where we would put a letter on a tree or a post in a store and say, are you living? People would come, living in the interior, then eventually come into the grocery store or whatever once a month, and there'd be a notice. Now, in the last 10 years, casting has evolved significantly with TikTok and social media, and Starlink has allowed even people who live completely off the grid to have access to the internet. That sort of made things a lot easier. And then, of course, the success of the show, I think people have watched and seen what we make and the integrity and the realness of it, and have responded. We've been on so long now that people say that they are going to Alaska because of the show. They're like, I watched Sue 10 years ago and decided to change my life and move to Alaska. And they're out there, and sometimes they end up on the show, which is kind of a cool full circle.
Yeah, I'm curious what the population growth of Alaska has been since this show premiered. Stu, have these people ruined your secluded lifestyle? Because we know you're a loner, but these people have to be like family now. Like all of a sudden you have they have to feel like friends and family too.
Yeah, have they ruined my secluded lifestyle? No, I wouldn't allow that. I'd just lock the door. There's not a lot of mystery with me, as far as you're going to know instantly how I feel about you and how I feel about what we are doing. But the way that this whole show morphed, the palpable amount of respect that the BBC and the film crew and everybody involved, Crofton, the respect that they give me and what I do. It's their job to say, are you getting up today? Because we'd love to film, but they accept that I'm just not feeling it right now, whatever. But the palpable amount of respect they have for my lifestyle. I am very gregarious, even at different events when they invite me down here. I'm like, oh my God, I'm a hugger, get in here, you know. But I am that way. I enjoy it because I know it's not permanent. You're gonna go home. And there's no question mark involved with that statement. You're going to go home. And I get my very secluded life back. I was telling Joe that right before I flew down here, I've been at the cabin for a little bit, recouping from something. And I was trying to pack up, and I have a little dog, and I'm getting him ready. And the dog runs off over by my hot tub, losing his mind. And I'm like, oh my God, Bill, he's 19 years old. Come on. And all of a sudden my hackles went up, and here's this grizzly that woke up out of the den, just pounding it down the river, snatched a moose that was there. And I've got a picture of this big hunk of fur and flesh taken out of him. He runs up, the bear nails him, brings him down. And I'm like, I'm late to the plane. I gotta go. You know, so things keep happening. But yeah, these people are family. They have children, they got married. And I'm like, oh my God, give me your registry. Don't come to the house, but give me your registry.
And Crofton, what's this been like for you? You've been out there as a field producer. What are the biggest challenges you face just getting to the locations and making sure the equipment is functional in these elements?
Oh gosh, that's a loaded question because I was the very first producer that went out with Sue. And the very first plane ride we went on, there was an electrical problem, and so it had an emergency controlled landing. So that was my very first introduction. And we left the safety of Dead Horse at 45 below. And Sue had been recovering from a surgery. I'm going to get to the point, like, it's super dangerous, and it's the logistics of getting to Sue's is really hard. And the very first time we got there, it was 45 below. I asked Sue turned around and told me, like, hey, you know, the bear is probably living in my tent where we're all going to live. So just be prepared that this is going to happen. Thank God that didn't happen. But what did happen is that it went from 45 below to 67 below with a wind chill. So now we're at 100 below, all crammed into her tent. And me being legitimately terrified and calling Joe and saying, what have we done? But there's, I mean, all joking aside about the logistics of getting there, like the flights, I kind of have a healthy respect and fear of flying. We have to fly over some pretty rugged terrain just to get to Sue's. There's been times where we've all had to scrape the wings to get the ice off, and then you get the 3 to 4 to 5 beeps, which is like, this is not good. The ice is developing on the wings, and we have no visibility. So I don't know. It's kind of terrifying sometimes, but you know, being with Sue and out at Kavik specifically, once we get there, then we just have to deal with all the elements. And, you know, Sue and I spent so much time filming in extreme conditions, but even in the wintertime, you know, the sun is coming back and the warmth is coming back, but now we have to deal with every animal that's waking up from its slumber. And we really are in a place where there's apex predators. But the biggest problem is my mental health when I'm covered with 300 mosquitoes. Yeah. And the time where I lose it. I just totally lose it. I start talking to Tanner in the third person, our editor, and I come unhinged at some point, and Sue has to watch me get unhinged and then get it back together. And then, you know, we continue on with whatever we're filming.
I want to interrupt just one. I'm going to do it a lot, but when I had a bunch of surgeries, you know, up here, the shoulder and whatnot, and we came back to Kavik, I had a specific gun designed. I couldn't use my right arm. They had told me I probably wouldn't have my use of my right arm any longer. And I'm like, yeah, you don't sleep with me or pay my bills. You don't get that vote. But I had a gun made specifically to fit my left arm and started learning how to utilize that. Crofton, was the producer. We came back to camp and I'm doing stuff on the Bobcat. And we're talking about this. Yeah, I got this. And it's specifically so I can just for predators. Well, it's going from winter to spring. Crofton's there and she's filming, looking at me. And I'm like for the wolf. And here's the pack of wolves that came not even, and she said, where? And I turn her around and I'm like 20 feet that way. And there they all are. And they realize that, oh, they're looking at us. Ah. And they started, crossing. I'm like, I don't have to shoot just because it's brown, doesn't have to go down. But the predators are there, whether you see them or not. And this was a prime example. And with their equipment, they can set, sometimes it's 60, 80 below zero. I'm doing my work. They have to get a break, but the cameras can't come inside and warm up because they're going to fog up and you lose all that time. You have this much daylight and you have to keep everything cold. But the minute they touch it, their hands are blasted again. And for me, when she's saying 300 mosquitoes, I'm going, oh, that was a light day. I can work with hundreds on me. I don't like the claustrophobic feeling of all the nets. You can't see properly, and I need to. So for me, I can just have thousands all over, and I'm cool with that. But yeah, it is. They get to see me lose it too. Tanner, I'm sure you've heard that. I'm going to find you. I'm going to. But you have to give grace to all of us, and that's the cohesive part of this.
Tanner, what is it like for you? Because you're probably sitting the most comfortably at home as this footage pours in, I imagine. Is that what it's like? But the overwhelming hundreds of hours of footage what are you thinking when that comes in, and how long does that take for you then to piece together an episode?
Totally. Yeah, I mean, seeing the conditions that they live, I'm very grateful to be in a warm edit bay with warm coffee while I'm editing the show. But as far as how I select the footage, I think about the story that we're trying to tell and the emotions that we want to come through, and that guides a lot of my editorial decisions. And if we have an hour of footage that we're trying to turn into a 3-minute scene, I try to see what information is essential to push the story from point A to point B to point C. At the same time, I'm looking for moments that cause a visceral reaction in me, and that sometimes there are things that don't help move the story forward or add clarity to it, but are powerful on an emotional level and may help with character development or adding a layer of complexity to the story, or simply just like wow moments that have nothing to do with the main story, but are powerful enough that we want to try to weave them into the story somehow. And as far as time, we have 35 edit days to get the show to network rough cut. So if that's one editor, it's 7 weeks, 2 editors, 3.5 weeks. Usually it boils down to about a scene every 2 days for us.
And Joe, who is sort of in charge of developing like what the story will be for each episode? And because we do have different subjects that you follow, not everyone is in every episode.
Yeah, well, the cast is primarily in charge of determining what they'll do. Typically, we have a general idea of when we're gonna go out. How many episodes we have, obviously, that season, and then trying to figure out who will be in where is based on what they're doing. We'll know like time of year, there's breakup, or there's certain hunts that you're allowed to do, or there's trapping season, or in certain places it'll be 24 hours of dark, and then conversely now we're coming up on 24 hours of light, and sort of all that determines what types of stories we can have. The initial logistics are really determined by, Alaska, honestly, determined by the weather and the bears and seasons, hunting seasons and breakup. After that, we have an idea of when our filming season schedule will be, and we call the cast and Sue and say like, hey, Sue, what are you doing in January? And she'll list, 10 something different things that she's doing. And we'll think like, oh, that sounds like it could be a story. And we then start to find the crew and send Crofton and the team out there, or a variety of people, and always have best intentions. We know this is the time of year for a moose hunt. This is the time of year we want to rebuild an outhouse or those things. But as always, Alaska might change that. You know, there's not it's not a shoot. You can't say, all right, cue the moose, and then the moose comes in. You know, you could be out there for 2 weeks and not get anything, and then you have to determine what's the story, and hopefully Crofton and the team in the field then determine, okay, well, is a failed moose hunt a story, for example. And it's like, well, Sue, what would you really be doing during that time? And you know, it'd be like, well, I would whatever, and then it's determining, is that a story? And then it goes to Tanner and the other story, you know, editors and story producers to then have them turn a, you know, fail into a success or a success into a fail. But really what determines the stories are the cast and Alaska. And then of course from there, it's everyone's incredible work making them engaging or not.
And Crofton, how long are you spending out there at any given time? Like, are you basically living a life below zero, or do you get significant periods of time where you get to come home? And also, is there like craft services? I don't see the crew eating muskrat. Like, what are you eating?
Well, funny you should ask, because Crocs just came out with a boot that has Pringles cans on either side of it. And I sent it to my director of photography. I'm like, do we need these for Kavik? Should we ask production to buy it? And then I was thinking, no, the bear will probably want those potato chips too. We do not have craft services. In the cold weather, you know, if you don't have something on your inside pocket, it's frozen and you can lose a tooth. And then in the hotter summer weather, again, like I can't begin to describe to you what it feels like to have 300 to 400 to 500 mosquitoes on you. So you don't want to like have them all over your face. But we do have amazing food. You know, Sue's an incredible shot, and she's very generous with her food. And I don't know if anybody knows this, but she's an incredible cook. And the camp is set up with a really nice industrial kitchen that, you know, she'll be like, oh, I just made this cake and cookies. And I don't know, we had ptarmigan gyoza one day because she's such a sure shot. I mean, it's just, it's really good eating out there.
Well, that's great that Sue's a great shot, but I have another question now, because in this new season, a bear comes, a black bear, and we see Sue with her handgun, and she has to go back for a bigger gun. Is she your only line of defense? Like, is everyone depending on Sue to save your lives? If this bear decides to come running down, like, what if the bear wants you? What if it doesn't want Sue?
Well, it already wanted Sue once before, so I actually do take bears really seriously. But we do have a safety person with us. So the rule is across the board that at no time can a camera operator have a gun. I've got too much stuff on me. I've got my walkie, I've got this, I've got that, and my camera, and I don't ever want to make a mistake. Also, it's just against the rules. But yes, Sue is my line of defense, as is my safety person. But a lot of choices and or mistakes are made before there's an encounter with the bear. And so, you know, Sue throughout the years has really taught me how to really see the environment. I mean, I don't know how Sue sees what she sees. And she's like, there's something moving out there. There's something and I was like, you know, I'm trying to find it with my camera. I can't find it. And, you know, oh, there's a whole bunch of wolves. Okay, right. You know, just that heightened perception of your environment, where it is. So I know that Sue's got my back, because I like the wolf story that she was just telling, like, I didn't know that a wolf had come up right behind me. And she's like, just turn around, look at it. It's right there.
And Sue, this new season, we also see your move to China, and you're refurbishing this old cabin, sod roof and all. And you get really honest about age, mortality, and what that means for someone who lives this kind of lifestyle. So how difficult has that been for you, and to be so vulnerable and honest about not being as strong as you used to be?
Well, first, I didn't move to the cabin. I went to the cabin. I still live in Kavik, but at some point, retirement's going to hit me. Whether, you know, the bears keep getting just as fast, if not faster, and younger, and that doesn't happen to me. So I have to at some point say, you know, yeah, I got to go someplace different. But and this goes back to your first question about how do you find the people for the show. My personality is brutally honest. And one of the first seasons, one of the first filmings, they said, Sue, what is the most important thing you bring to a lifestyle like this? I said, it's got to be brutal honesty. Brutal honesty with yourself, how you're feeling, so you can deal with it. For me, you've seen me fat as a butterball turkey. You've seen me thin. You've seen me healthy. You've seen me sick, and they have to airdrop medications. There are so many versions of you that are created over your lifetime. You're in a constant state of evolving. Part of my nature is brutal honesty about, it was hard for me, and I don't know how Tanner edited it or which editor it was, but I tried for so long to get that full sheet of plywood up there, many of them, and it kept falling, and I would not give up. And that's when I crumpled, and the answer is I can't. I cannot move. Acknowledge the elephant in the room. Once you acknowledge the elephant in the room, how do you eat the elephant? One bite at a time, cut it in half. And if I couldn't do it in halves, I would have gone to a quarter, but you really would have seen me cry.
So it's true, really documentary style. Like none of the crew's going to help you. I mean, they're
no, and they want to. I ended up having an underlying condition, and I had surgery on my cervical spine, which I didn't realize at the time, and the arms were not helping me lift anything. But they want to help you, but they're there to film the story, not become the story. And that's sort of like where you're asking about the craft services. Their safety person is also, most of the time, their cook. They try not to, if I just sat there and said, okay, I'm going to cook for like an extra 4 people, gravy, I can do it. I love to cook. The fancier, the better. I have a very explosive creative side, and that comes through in cooking, hunting, everything I do. But they don't become what I do. So if I'm struggling, you're going to see it. I'm going to invite you in and go, I just can't. And it's all about me, and I can't. And then how do you resolve it? And they very artistically, we got a picture of me when I was around 12 years old and put it in the background, and you see the younger me and the older me, but we're both still in here. And guess what? 20 years from now, there may be an ancient me coming in. Methuselah comes in. And when we all cross the finish line, I have to be friends with all of them, because they're going to be like, get it, girl, you got it. But for the person watching, if I'm not being totally authentic, why are you watching? They come to see, oh my gosh, is she making a pie? If I don't get it, Sue's lost too much weight. She's gonna die. But I can be honest with you about, I'm craving chocolate. This is a chick thing. Don't get in the middle of my way. You know, and that's sort of the cohesive thing. Jesse, watching something that he was in and seeing on his face, I sometimes want to just trim his hair, but I look on his face and I see him go, I know how badly he was injured when that building collapsed on him. And to see him go, I had no upper body strength. I had none. For somebody who was running with his dogs and staying in peak physical condition, it was traumatic. But here he is with his little dog, and he's going up this mountain, and I was captivated by it. So the authenticity of what we're doing is the key.
And Joe, talk a little bit about the beauty of the series. It's won multiple Emmys for cinematography and getting those overhead shots. What type of cameras are you, or Crofton, or what are you using? Is it drones? Is it planes, helicopters? How are you capturing some of that B-roll that we see that gives us the real landscape of Alaska?
Well, this goes back to your first question about the evolution of the show. You know, it's been when we've been very fortunate, as you mentioned, to be making something for 13, 12, something like that, over a decade. When we first started the show, there were no drones. They didn't exist. I assume maybe the military had some drones, or they were just on the early days of being used, and definitely not in photography. We had an incredible helicopter pilot. That was our only way to get overhead shots. And you definitely couldn't have an overhead shot mixed in with a story. You know, it'd be more generic. Here's the beauty of Alaska. Here are the mountains. Maybe if we can coordinate and have the helicopter on the same day, Sue could be on top, you know, in the mountain, standing there, but not really mixed in with story. As drones in the last 10 years have evolved and become part of filmmaking, you know, at first they were outlawed. No, first they were allowed, then they were outlawed, then they weren't. Now they're still not allowed in national parks. So it's following obviously those rules and regulations. But the evolution of our filmmaking has gone along with the evolution of drones. Now we do have drones in our arsenal, in addition to slow-mo cams and GoPros. GoPros also were a very new thing when we started. We maybe have 1 or 2 shots that were a GoPro. Then, you know, as slow-mo photography evolved over the years, we added that into the arsenal. It really is just trying to, you know, as I mentioned, that Alaska doesn't wait for anyone, and it's being ready with the right tool. Is it a close-up shot? Is it a giant wide shot? And it's a testament to the crew in the field being ready. You know, oftentimes, I wouldn't say often, but let's say there's a bear or a wolf or caribou. You're not going to be like, okay, wait, caribou, hold on, I gotta switch to the right lens, and I gotta. So it's having that balance of, you know, flexibility in terms of the gear that you have, but also being ready at a moment's notice to capture it. And we go out there with about 2,000 pounds of gear, something like that. More, way more. Okay, a lot more. Maybe it's come a long way. So lots and lots of gear. That includes, obviously, as you mentioned, food for the crew, that kind of stuff. You know, we try to be as self-contained as possible in terms of our gear, where we're staying, so that it is as authentic as possible when we're following the cast, when we're following Sue. But that also goes with our gear. You know, you want to be light because you're in the middle of nowhere. There's oftentimes on electricity, so how are you charging? But you have to bring enough batteries, you have to bring solar chargers, but you have to keep everyone safe in terms of where they're staying. So it really is a balance. But overall, to answer the question, I think really the you know, it's a testament to the crew in the field, able to capture not just what's happening right in front of their face, you know, for example, what Sue is doing, but then to be able to share the character of Alaska with the audience in the way that they do.
Let me distill it though. So how we film it is something's happening with Sue. Something's happening with the other people that we're filming. And I have to film it in real time. And typically there's 3 cameras up. My camera, the DP's camera, and our AC. Then we have all these GoPros kind of hidden about, sprinkled about to add some ingredient. And when we feel like we have shot the scene in real time as a documentary, as what's happening in the moment, and we can all take a break, we check out the scene safety. Is it safe for us to put our, you know, cameras down and then start shooting the specialty? Then the drone goes up. Then the slow motion comes up, and then we've captured the scene. And the whole time that we're doing this, we're all thinking, what does Tanner need? Think like an editor, think like an editor, think like an editor, because none of us want to be an editor. And that is how we shoot a scene. And yes, we had an amazing helicopter pilot. And then, you know, the drones came in, and we've been playing with drones ever since. And it takes incredible patience with Sue, because it takes a little bit of time sometimes to set up these shots, or the time lapses that we really want. Like the team is so good at getting these exquisite shots, but it takes time, and it takes Sue's patience.
And there's that element of surprise.
Yeah.
We're doing something entirely different in the dining hall, and I had some clients, kids, and I usually cover the windows at night and it's not just that I mean, I live pretty far from people. So it's not that I'm worried about you looking in at me, although that'd be weird. But it's the animals too. The animals are always looking and making a plan, and you can't see them once it's dark. And the kids were doing their thing over here. And I turn around and I was cleaning my guns and I'm like, I'm going to go bring them back. And here's these young boys and they're like, I'm going to carry them. You're getting old. I'm not that old yet. Stop. But I go out the door and, so I'm carrying my things, go out the door right into a bear that's standing up. I hit right into his chest and I back up and everybody with me. And then it's like bear in camp. And that bear was after those boys, because that's what he saw through the window. I just bowled out first. But all of a sudden it went from everybody's getting ready for bed and we're wrapping up the night and I'm doing this with clients. And it turned into bear in camp, everybody in, this is what's happening, get ready. And just that fast, it went from going through footage for whatever Tanner may need to Pooch Tanner, we now have a story. And what do you need? And then I have to do the safety of there's a bear rolling his shoulder into cabins trying to get somebody to come out like a sardine can. So the teams, as the equipment changes and all that, you have such experience now with the cinematographers that they can at a glance go, instead of going, oh my God, a bear, they can overcome that and go, give me Godzilla, give me this, give me that. We have one special huge lens that's like incredible and we call it Godzilla. And you can't use the drone in the refuge. They're so clever, you can tie it up with a balloon and get a different perspective. So it's not powered. But the talent, I can't say enough, the talent that's on the show, not me, the people filming it.
Yeah.
I'm going to be me no matter where I go, but they have that ability on the fly. A bear is right in my arms. I sit the kids, get them back in, call on the radio, and within 3 to 5 minutes, everybody's all ready. And where are we going? What are we going to get here? And I make sure it's safe. And then we all snake chain out.
And speaking of all of that talent, Tanner, isn't it sort of fascinating that Crofton said, no one wants to be Tanner. They're all living a life below zero. And still, you have the job that no one wants. So talk about what it is. How big is that editing team? And what is the turnaround time that you have to sort of take all of this footage, come up with an episode and say, okay, this is going to air. Are you sort of under a deadline like that, or are you kind of working and then people decide later when the season will premiere?
Yeah, I guess first speaking to the talent, I would say that is my biggest challenge on Life Below Zero, in the fact that I work with such talented people. I mean, and that there's such amazingly talented people on Life Below Zero. So when I'm starting a scene and the story is at this level and the cinematography is at this level, and I have to edit together and I'm editing. And if the scene turns out at this level, it'll be very clear where the ball was dropped. So I had this in my mind going into every single scene, that I need to make it as captivating and dynamic as I possibly can. So I'm not disrespecting the hard work and talent of everybody else, the cast, the crew, and the rest of post-production. And for each episode, it's usually one story producer and one editor, but it depends on schedules, and it usually takes about 35 days to get a show to the network for the first time.
Wow.
I think we should print signs for the field that say, what would Tanner need? Just like big giant signs that we hold up in every location.
Well, we say it. And just because I have become feral in the last 10 years of filming this show, it doesn't mean that I just can't go inside anymore. So I appreciate everybody's work that does stay inside to make it happen, because really I get to have the best life possible, like the best, but only because Joe has to be inside doing everything and Tanner has to have his team putting it together. I don't want to, I can't do that anymore. I don't want to.
And Joe, the show's received 8 Emmys for this specific series. What does that recognition mean for a show like this? And how proud are you to be going in 22 seasons and strong?
It's been unreal to look back and think about the amount of nominations and the amount of years, the amount of episodes and the spinoffs and all the success that we've gotten. You know, for me though, I think the number one thing looking back is thinking about all the people who've worked on the show, of course the cast, but thinking from the Croftons and the Tanners and to the PAs. You know, there's been hundreds of people over the years, several hundred across all shows who've made it possible. And to me, thinking about the success really is 12 years of getting to work with people that I really enjoy working with, and extra bonus that people who are extremely talented. One of the sort of best things that I think I can do is find the most incredible talented people, and for the most part get out of their way, let them do their thing. And you know, I get to step in every once in a while and be like, that looks good. But really, I think it's the, you know, friends that we've all become, family. You know, as Sue mentioned, you know, a lot of us started this show in different places, and people have gotten married and kids, and people have moved, but a lot of us who've been, you know, Crofton mentioned she was one of the first people to go out there, and that was 12, 13 years ago. Sue, Crofton, and I were working on this show, and it's been a wild ride, but really more than the recognition and more than the Emmys, it's the people and the family that we've all got to work with over the years that to me is the greatest joy and the thing I'm the most grateful for.
Yeah.
Oh, no,
Yeah.
I think it's about getting those Emmys. I think that's where we need to keep going. And it's just getting good. It's just getting great.
More.
It is nice to be, of course, nominated versus not, and it is also fun to win. And I think it is a testament to the crews in the field and the crews in the Bay that they continue to get the recognition. But obviously it's not done for the recognition. I think that at being sort of an afterthought of it is a pretty wonderful cherry on top of the ability to do good work. You know, but
Yeah,
of course, you know, feel free to vote for us either way, though. On top of us all being friends, we'll take the cherry on top.
yeah. And to be clear, I'm not, when I'm out in the field, I'm not in my mind, I am not chasing an Emmy. In my mind, I know that I'm working with the best team and with the best people. And I don't want to do good, you know, good is the enemy of great. I want to do great. Like the environment is so incredible, and I have to mimic that. And I have to, you know, Sue is leading and living an extraordinary life. And so I have to match that level of exceptional. And yeah, it's just getting good.
And
And
that's a great point that Crofton makes, which is that obviously we are all out there doing a job and trying to do the best job we can, but we're also in someone's life, like Sue. We are following what they're doing, and there is a respect that has grown over the years, and a friendship and family that I mentioned, but that we want to do justice to their story. You know, ultimately, we could go have the best editors, we could have the best cameras and drones and helicopters, but then, you know, if Sue just sat there, we would have we'd have no show. So it's really also on top of wanting to do just the most incredible work, both editing and shooting. It's doing justice to Sue, who not just doing justice to, like, okay, Sue's going on a harvest or trapping or building something. It's when Sue opens up and the rest of the cast opens up their lives, not just what they're doing, but what they're feeling, the why. How does it, you know, as you mentioned, Sue talking about aging and talking about what it's like to be older and those kinds of things. It's really I'd say a burden, but a great burden to have to do justice to the trust that they give us to tell their stories.
I think just to add, Crofton, Daniel, I mean, keep going with the list of producers and cameramen and whatnot. The respect they give me I'm attention deficit at the best of times. It's like when I come down for different events and they're like, do you want a car? And I'm like, oh my God, have you not seen me? I don't know. There's no roads. I don't pay attention. When I drive, what am I gonna do? Bump into a moose? I can't, I notice everything. Ooh, shiny. But they take my personality now. They were learning who I was in the beginning, then going, why can't she just understand what we need? And now it's, oh, she's got this unique personality. And then occasionally I look down and my check engine light is on now. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm getting old. But they take where I'm headed, what I'm doing. We're looking at this bear and all that. Okay, I was doing a runway first. It was a simple runway story. I stop, I see something. I'm like, that's a kill that a bear buried. I don't care about my runway now. This is incredibly important. It's only half a mile from my bed. And they see me do this Sherlock Holmes, this is what I would do. This is what it's going to do. This is, how do you know? Because I'm thinking like the bear. Don't even talk to me, just follow. And we piece this whole thing together, but they recognize now this is her personality. It's going 14 directions. We need 14 cameras. And it comes together. And they go, what is your vision on this? What are you thinking? And I go, oh, I think about this. But you know what? You are so good at doing this. I could do this. And so you now have this cohesive team that knows each other. And we embrace the newcomer coming in because like, they wouldn't have picked you if you weren't great. Get in here for a hug. But it makes the magic. We were making good TV, then it was great stories, and now it's magic.
It's an incredible cast, incredible crew, and the Emmys you've won are deserved, and best of luck this upcoming season as well. I hope more names get called out this year. And this series airs on National Geographic. It can be found streaming on Disney Plus and Hulu. And I'd like to thank you all for joining me today and having such a fun, enlightening discussion about life below zero.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.